What is going on, guys and girls? Welcome back to EU4 and my Epilogue episode of the Great Conversion series. And there's a few things I want to do today, but I want to first start off with an overview. Then I want to go through the ledger, show you the map modes, as well as have a look at some specific countries in more detail. I then want to talk about this series, how I felt it went, because I tried something new. I also want to talk about my next series, and then at the end, I'm just going to show you the timeline, but there's going to be no more commentary. It's just going to be ending the episode with the timeline. So that's my plan for today, and as I said, we'll start with a quick overview. We see the map of the world, and you can already spot the great powers, but I'm still going to show you the list. As you can see here, this is the rundown. I'm not going to really read it out because you can check that for yourself. But what I really love about this is that the great powers are not all centered in Europe, right? We do have European great powers in France, England, and, you know, revolutionary Galindia. But that's it. The rest, you know, we've got two Asian great powers in Hindustan and Xi. We've got an African great power with Ethiopia, and we have two sort of in-between powers, you know, Egypt and Antioch. They can be considered European or African, depending on if you just go by their capital, but they can also be, you know, Middle Eastern. Either way, it's just kind of cool that we have it spread out around the world, I guess. So that's something I really enjoy. I also like that the colonial borders are sort of neat. Obviously, there is some border gore here and there, but for the most part, we see that the Western Hemisphere is controlled, or, well, the European colonizers have focused on Africa and America, whereas Australia and the islands over here are mostly controlled by the Egyptians and by the Asian great powers. So that's something really fun. We do see some minor nations with great colonial possessions as well, like Galway over here and Sicily, as well as Andalusia having large parts in southern America. But yeah, we obviously see the great colonial contingents of the great powers as well, with England over here and obviously the French in Canada. So yeah, overall, that is really nice. A few other important positions to note. Obviously, target of a revolution is Galindia. We have Swabia over here as the Holy Roman Emperor. We have Xi, obviously, as the Celestial Emperors. France controlling the Curia. And I think that is basically all the special mechanics that we have. So for now, I would say we move on to the ledger, and we'll just go through every single page. To some, I will say a few more things, to others, not that much. Now, as for the country overview, it's not really a big surprise that we have the most development in France. What I am surprised by is the fact that Ethiopia does not actually lag that far behind. France has them beat only by 9 development, which is basically nothing. But we will see that France makes a much better use of their lands. So they have a lot more manpower. Maximum manpower of France is 300k, and then the next up is actually Hindustan with, well, 190k. So yeah, that is quite a difference. Also, in terms of money, this is amazing. France has 250,000 ducats. 250,000 ducats. That's right. I had to check this several times because I wasn't sure if this is 24,000 ducats or 250,000. But it is the latter. So yeah, congratulations, France, on having that much money. And also, we've got their vassal state, their March of Normandy, which is actually a leftover from CK2. They are still ruled by the Van Talen house, one of the custom houses that was actually created in CK2 by my Patreons, by 2 of them actually, because their houses united. Really fun story. But anyways, they are still around, and they're the second richest nation in the world with 40,000 ducats saved up. Not sure what they're going to do with this money, but I love that they have acquired all that much. That's really cool. Yeah, the rest doesn't really matter all too much. Tax, ideas, power projection, not really a big deal, so we're just going to be moving on from there. We do have score. I don't really care about score, but I do like this next page because this shows the score through the ages. And the thing I love about this is that it kind of shows how, or which nations were relevant at what time, and when they started to decline or rise. That's so cool to see. So we're going to check out the discovery here, and we'll actually see that during the Age of Discovery, the game did not consider France #1 in the world. It was actually Ming, which I find really cool. But France was still relevant. Oh my god. And there's some other nations in here that we'll never see in the later stages. We see Takru here, which was a great empire, great African empire that was established in CK2, and they were still very relevant in the early stages here. We see Persia, we obviously see Ethiopia and Egypt, who are still relevant. We also see the Bulgarian Empire, the Levant, Mongolia, and even Byzantium. So that is all really cool to see. But in the Age of Reformation, a lot of these nations are no longer there. We now have France as #1 and Ming only at #3, so they've started their decline in a way. Although they're still gaining more points. One thing I should just generally note for those who don't know, it appears that as time goes on, it is easier to acquire more points in the later ages. So, for example, France only gathered like 700 points in the first age, but in the Age of Revolutions, they have a lot more points. So I'm not sure why this is. That's just something generally that always seems to happen. But yeah, so then we've got other nations. Andalusia doing very well in that in the Age of Reformation, apparently. We still have Persia being around, even Sicily making some points. Takru is still relevant as well, but they have already lost significantly. Norway also having their golden time during this age, which might be because I played as them. Yeah, then we've got the absolutism. Still, France is going to be #1. That's not really a surprise. Egypt being #2 here. And no more, well, actually there is Ming, but they're gaining significantly less points, even though it is easier. So they've definitely started their decline now, and we no longer see any of the nations like Takru, Byzantium, Bulgaria, Mongols. They're all gone. They're no longer relevant. Even Persia is not really too good. Persia actually really starts to decline in this last era. They didn't make any more points. We have Galindia here rising to prominence, same with Swabia as emperors, and Xi actually getting some points as well, and French Canada, surprisingly. Even though they're just a colony, they racked up quite a lot of points as well. So, and I guess shout out to Aiden over here with quite a lot of points too. Very nice. Moving on, nations, technologies, doesn't really matter all that much. I have actually listed it so to show the least technologically advanced nations, where we have the Aztec, a vassal of the English over here. They're probably going to be annexed soon, but yeah, not really surprised that they're doing poorly. What I am surprised by is that Takru is actually still around. Congratulations. They have survived, which obviously they're terrible. They're not relevant, but they're at least still around, which, you know, can't be said of the Mongols or the Byzantines, Bulgarians, or even the Russians. They're no longer there. So props to Takru for surviving. But what I'm actually kind of upset and surprised about is the fact that Norway and Sicily are this far down the list. In terms of technology, they're really not doing well. And I'm not sure what the reason is, because they're Europeans. They should usually do well in terms of technology. So that is really upsetting to see. The rest doesn't really matter all that much, because most of the nations are at Tech 30, and that is, you know, that's perfectly normal. Yeah, as for religions, unfortunately there's a bug in the ledger here, because it doesn't show the proper amount of provinces that are controlled by this religion. We'll have a better look at this on the map modes, but I always like to compare this. So the only thing I can really compare now is the amount of countries, and we definitely see that Catholicism is by far the most dominant religion in the world. Its defender of the faith is France. The only other religion that has a defender is the Coptic religion with Ethiopia. But Ethiopia doesn't really have much to defend, because of the 6 nations that are following their religion. One of them, well, it's themselves and 3 of their colonies. And then we have the very minor province of Nubia. The only other Coptic nation of note would be Aden, but I think they're even allied to the Egyptians, so to the Ethiopians, so whatever. Yeah, France, obviously defender of the faith, controller, not really surprised there. We have 10 Protestant nations, and yeah, it's kind of funny to see Norway is no longer Protestant. They were converted. The only other nation that is really still Protestant is Obertrithia. They're the only European nation, and then the rest is just colonies. As well as, surprisingly, a lot of the natives, the Shawnee, the Comanche, have converted. And, well, we see that Haiti and the United States, two of Obertrithia's former colonies who have broken free, they are also Protestant. So at least their legacy continues, which is something cool. No reformed nations. We've got Orthodoxy surviving, but not being relevant. With the fall of the Russians, Bulgarians, and Orthodox, and the Mongols, there was no one really supporting them ever. The Sunnis completely driven out of Africa, Shia the same, so they're basically surviving in India and Southeast Asia. We've got, yeah, few of the other religions. They're really not all that important anymore. One religion of note is maybe the Nahuatl, the Aztecs, still following that. And we have a Zoroastrian nation as well, which is really cool. I love that. Two Tengri nations as well. And even an Anglican nation with Argentine down here in South America, which I always love. I love diversity in that. So yeah, we'll be checking out the map mode, so that's going to show a little bit more as well. We've got none of this. We've got province development. Well, the only thing really important here is that Beijing is the greatest city in the world. Most development is actually Beijing. Then we've got Kos in Egypt, and only then comes Paris, which I found very surprising. Normandy has a very highly developed province as well in Ka, and then Cairo is number 5 on the list. So Egypt is really doing well in terms of great cities. Then the capital of the Holy Roman Empire, Swabia's capital, pretty big as well. Then another Chinese province, and I suppose a Korean province or city. A Indian province, the capital of the Catholic world, Rome, doing pretty well. 2 French provinces, the Austrian capital, and Constantinople, the city of the world's desire, doing pretty well as well, at least on the first page. Okay, other than that, none of this matters. Advisors don't matter. Military leaders, a lot of you guys were interested to see who has the best army, and we'll check out the army numbers, but I think it's also kind of cool to see the leaders. Strongest military leader is actually a conquistador from Khmer with 15 overall points, which is actually not all that good considering that you can have 24 possible, right? So if you have 6, you can have 24 points, so 15 is pretty far off, but that's the best we got. Then we have another general from Brandenburg, also with 15 pips, but no trait. And then, surprisingly, the best admirals are actually the US admirals. So they are quite a naval power, we'll see that. In terms of quality anyways, the US have the best navy, so that's pretty surprising. 15 pips here as well. Then it kind of whittles down. The best French general has only 14 pips, which is not too impressive. Yeah, moving on. Current rulers doesn't matter. Holy Roman Emperors, I love checking out this because it kind of shows at what time, you know, which family or which nation ruled. So we started off with Moravia and the von Erbach dynasty. Then we've got 2 rulers of the von Neuenburgs of Sicily who were really powerful at some point, but they've lost a lot of their power, as you will see. Then they were replaced by the Pirovanos of Tuscany. Then, interestingly, 2 different dynasties, but Bohemia held on to the imperial throne for 4 generations. Then the Julischgau dynasty taken over for 3 generations, 2 of which under the Moravian branch. I would have never expected this nation to ever be controller of the HRE again after their initial start. So that was surprising to see. But then Swabia took over, intersected by the Ludovingers of Lune for a while. Then Swabia again, intersected by Habsburg. And then, yeah, the Swabians held on to the throne. And they will likely continue to do so forever. But there's not much to hold on to, if we're being honest. The Holy Roman Empire is kind of useless, to be honest. They have no authority gain. There's 94 provinces in the empire that are under control of non-members. So that's really terrible. They have no reform at all. The official faith is Catholic, but yeah, it has basically no relevance. And apparently it seems as if Swabia is not going to inherit. I mean, it's not going to continue as emperors because they're not even voting for themselves. They're backing Galray for some reason. Why? They must have a female or something. I could imagine. Anyway, so yeah, that's that. That's the Holy Roman Emperors. Anything else? Army quality comparison. Okay, so now let's check out the morale. Highest land morale actually is Ethiopia. Then we've got Revolutionary Galindia. And you might be wondering, where's France? France would actually be up there as well, but they are not paying for their troops. So their morale is lowered. But if we count, if we get rid of the modifier here, they would be at 10.1 or something. They would be around what Revolutionary Galindia has. They would still be beaten by Ethiopia, but they would certainly be up here. As for discipline, we have, Thuringia with 127 discipline. That is insanely good. Then a couple of Asian nations. Normandy up here as well. French Canada doing pretty well too. And then we've got Ethiopia with 114. And France only has... we have to scroll down quite a bit, because France only has 104 discipline, tying with Norway here. And that's really not too good. So in terms of morale, they are worse than Ethiopia. In terms of discipline, they are way worse than Ethiopia. And in terms of professionalism, France has 0. Admittedly, just like Ethiopia. So, you know, that's kind of that. I'm not sure why their professionalism is so low, because France, Ethiopia, Antioch, those are some of the nations with the largest armies. I really don't know why their professionalism is that low, but I suppose they're either fighting or they're not paying for their troops while at peace because it's such a huge expense. I could imagine that being the reason. As for tradition though, France has Ethiopia beat. They're at 59% with Ethiopia is only at 39 or something, or 34 or something. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind. Yeah, armies, I already mentioned, largest army controlled by France. They've got almost 500,000 men under their control, and in terms of force limits, they could go much higher. What's interesting to see is that in terms of infantry, Ethiopia and Antioch can actually hold their own, against the French. But the difference comes in artillery. So, we'll see quite a lot more artillery regiments under French control than the other two nations. And that is really what shows the strength of the French economy, because artillery is very expensive, especially having that much of it. So yeah. Anyway, moving on, we've got naval quality comparison. I already mentioned that the United States are kind of a naval power, at least in quality. So they have the highest morale, which is only reduced by their prestige. If they had a little bit more prestige, look at this, they're number 1 even with abysmal prestige. If they had just a little bit more, they would be doing incredibly well. Their tradition's also by far the highest, but unfortunately, in terms of quantity, they're not doing all too well. So the largest navy is unsurprisingly controlled by the English, but I am actually surprised to see that the French are not that far behind. They only have them beat by 7 ships. And in terms of heavy ships, it's actually the French that win. And if we count French Canada's navy to the French navy, then they have the English beat easily. So yeah, kind of upset that England's doing so poorly. And as for the US, they are, they have a couple ships, but it's not enough to be of any significance. There's like nations like Majapahit, Aden, and Gallery in Colombia that has, more ships than the United States. So it's not that impressive. Anyway, moving on, we have army losses. Now, this is actually really cool because most losses, obviously, by the French, they lost some 7.5 million men. And interestingly, they lost 2.3 million in battle, which is a lot, admittedly, but 5 million to attrition. So I don't know if they're just just really good fighters and terrible administrators, or what's the reason here? Yeah, I guess the French just don't care to feed their troops. They just say, okay, you know what? You're going on campaign, and if you're starving or if you're cold, who cares? Just die. We have more people to replace you with. That seems to be their general strategy, because it doesn't have to be this terrible. Like, this discrepancy doesn't have to be the case. For example, we see Hindustani, who have lost actually more men in battle than the French. They've also lost a lot of men to attrition, but not that many. And if we have a look at the Holy Roman Emperors of Swabia, they also have lost 2 million men in battle, but only a fraction of the troops to attrition. I guess the reason for this is that Swabia basically always lost all of their armies in battle, and they hardly ever got to siege anything. I think the French steamrolled the enemy armies and then just sieged their countries and obviously lost a lot of men to attrition there. That is my guess. Yeah, as for... actually, you know what? We could check out the nation that has lost the least troops. That is Argentina. Only 16k troops lost. Good for them. And who has lost the fewest to attrition? New Andalusia. Okay, well, this has got to be... Yeah, this is likely colonies. Not really surprised. They usually don't fight all that much. Alright, well, naval losses. Highest naval losses by far are the English, losing 1,500 ships, out of which 375 are heavy ships. And compare that to the next one on the list, Andalusia. We see why the English Navy is not that powerful, because they have fought a lot of wars and they've fought poorly, apparently. That's very upsetting, especially because a lot of their ships have been captured as well. I would love to know who captured these ships, but yeah. Anyway, you'll see that no ship has ever been lost to attrition. That's because the AI does not take naval attrition, so this is really just for the player. Kind of annoying, but oh well. Yeah, obviously France high up on the list too, and actually now I'm just interested to see if the US has lost ships. The US has actually lost their fair share of ships. Wow, okay. 150 ships, that's significant. Alright, moving on. We've got none of this because I'm in spectator mode. Income comparison. Now, we obviously know the French have the highest income. We already checked that out. But why, I guess, is something that we can check out here. They have the highest taxation, followed by Antioch, surprisingly, in number 2. And then we've got several other nations here. They also have the highest production. But here, Ethiopia is number 2 and England number 3. Antioch really not doing too well in terms of production. And in terms of trade, we actually have England on number 2. So while France is boring, always being number 1, I like to see who comes afterwards. So, you know, it's not always the same nation, which I really like that. I think that's cool. And one huge surprise was tariffs. Now, we'll see that France is making a lot of money from tariffs, but they're not number 1. They're not number 1. They're actually being beaten by Andalusia. And this is especially surprising because Andalusia, if we just look at their country, they're making, like, they're not even making $20 a month, right? But with their tariffs, they make 76. So they're really exploiting their colonies. Andalusia, Peru, and La Plata. You know, look, these huge colonies are supporting this small overlord. I'm not sure for how long they're going to do that until they realize this is bullshit. We should declare independence. In fact, let me quickly check their liberty desire. It's at only 26. 26 is not as high as I would have expected. Yeah, well, 42 is pretty high, so yeah. Anyway, that's really cool to see that they're making so much money. It's possible. You can be shitty and still make tons of money. I like that. Anyway, yeah, moving on. We've got, yeah, none of this is important. Technology, yeah, no, this doesn't matter. Trade notes. Some of you people are interested in trade. Let me quickly check out, yeah, I guess the total trade value. English Channel, most valuable, and Genoa being relatively close behind. This is surprising. I would have expected the English Channel to be way better than this. But, yeah, we've got Champagne here with huge total as well. But they would do so much better if the French were able to keep a lot of their money stored. But as you can see, look at this. A lot of their money is actually going to Genoa and the English Channel, which is surprising. If they could, if the French could keep all of this money in Champagne, they would be even richer. Constantinople doing really well. Rhineland doing really well as well. Aleppo doing good. Caribbean up here. Where is Venice? Where is Venice? Damn. Venice is so... Where? Wait. Oh, there it is. They're so low on the list. This is an end node, but it's hardly making any money. Wow. That's actually kind of impressive. Anyway, moving on. We'll have a better look at this through the trade map mode, I think. Trade goods are not important. Strategic goods are kind of cool to see who's production leader. Obviously, we see a lot of the French over here producing wine, of course, and salt. Not really surprised. French Canada controlling the fish, the fur, and naval supplies. We've got slaves being produced by Ethiopia. And, of course, England is in there as well. Ivory and coffee. Then, well, France got control over, like, iron, glass, and coal, stuff like that. We've got cotton, silk, dyes, and gems for India. I like that. Tea and Chinaware for the Chinese. But we even have Sicily and Brazil. Coca and tropical wood. Anyone else? Gironca having sugar produced. Very cool. And Brunei leading production of spices. And Aden producing the most incense. Very cool. Very cool indeed. This does not matter. Country trade comparison, don't think we really need that. Highest efficiency is Thuringia, 100% efficiency. And yeah, I suppose that's nice. Mercantilism, 62% for the Zulu. And the Scottish up there as well, 50%. Yeah, the rest I don't really know what it means, so I'm just going to move on. We've got none of this. Current wars, kind of interesting as well, but I'm just going to skip over that. Great powers, what he saw. And that is it for the ledger. Alright, so I guess what we'll do now is we'll check out some of the map modes. We obviously have the political map mode here. Imperial, well, yeah, no surprise. We see the Emperor here, and Gironca actually being part of the Empire. They've actually added a lot of their territories. Sicily is no longer part of the Empire, which is so interesting to see. So they've been kicked out. They were for a long time part of the Empire, but they've left. And their capital is now in Africa. Yep, Tunis is their capital. So they've left and lost a lot of provinces. Bohemia had a huge expansion of the empire to the east, but they lost all of these provinces, and that is now hurting the empire. There's still provinces of, in the British Isles under imperial control, and of course the French have a lot of control here. So yeah, that is that. What have we got next? Culture. That's interesting to see. Although culture usually doesn't change all that much. We have a little bit of culture conversion here done by Austria, it seems. But yeah, that's basically it. The old will, I guess, isn't all too interesting. We'll check the new one because there's not too many things that have changed here. Yeah, nothing really has changed. Ethiopia has done a lot of conversion, to be fair. That's good to see, I guess. We have, yeah, nothing too special here. Occitan in South Africa. And then, yeah, as I said, New World. We'll see a lot of German. We see Franconian, Saxon, Pomeranian. The Americans obviously are German. They are Pomeranian as their primary culture. And so, yeah, this is a lot we see. We see Scottish Argentina. And we have Andalusian as well, having a lot of control. But of course, Occitan, that is surprising because this is English Mexico. I'm not sure why they're Occitan, to be honest. Maybe because the English king was Occitan at some point. I don't know. But yeah, so the French and German cultures are basically the French, German, and Iberian cultures are the big colonizers. But yeah, there's nothing too interesting about culture, actually. It hasn't really changed all that much. Okay, what is next? Accepted cultures. Yeah, I guess that only matters for specific countries. I don't want to check this for every single one, so we'll leave it as well. We've got religion. This is obviously a big deal. Now, as I said, Norway has been forcefully converted to Catholicism, but their people are still Protestant. Yeah, as you can see, they're now a vassal of Galindia, have been forced to convert. Ubutrithia has a lot of their lands currently occupied, but at least their legacy has converted a lot of North America. Unfortunately, French Canada took a lot of the Protestant provinces from Vinland, which still survives with one province, and converted it, because all of this was Protestant before. But we have the US Protestant and a lot of the natives, like the Shawnee and Comanche, and of course Haiti is Protestant as well, and is spreading it through South America. So that's nice to see. As I said, we have Anglican in Argentina, Scottish Argentina, and then, yeah, obviously the huge Coptic nation of Ethiopia. As I said, no Muslims in Africa and Arabia, for that matter. So the only Muslims are in India, with Hindustan being Shia and Jaunpur being Sunni. The Persians are Shia as well, but they have a lot of Zoroastrian provinces. One Zoroastrian nation is around, and we have a little of Orthodoxy in a very strange place. They're not where they're supposed to be. They're much farther to the east. We also have a few Tangri nations, of course. Confucian here in Xi, and Shinto in Japan. And, of course, because some of these nations have colonized, we also have Sunni in America, actually. This is Pasai colonizing. Coptic through Ethiopia, and, well, a little bit of Shinto, Alaska, due to Japan colonizing. All right, next up, we've got metropolitan, doesn't matter, estates, doesn't matter, unrest, no, government types. Someone wanted to check this out. This is actually quite interesting. We see that Galindia has a revolutionary empire, but there are a lot more republics out there. So Thuringia, for example, and Austria and Bohemia, all of them are constitutional republics. Same goes for Ferrara and Gorgons, the strongest Orthodox nation. Then we've got a few republics here in Asia as well, which is cool to see. Obviously, Xi has the Celestial Empire. Then most nations in the world are some sort of monarchy, either administrative or feudal monarchies. We do have a few. I think there's some other monarchies as well, not feudal or administrative. I'm not sure what they're called. Obviously, we have colonial government in the New World. Mostly, the United States have a constitutional... Right. United States have a constitutional monarchy and not an administrative one. So that's a bit of a surprise. Despotic monarchies for the Aztec. And then we've got enlightened despotism in Tuscany and a constitutional monarchy in Galway. That's basically it. What do you have? Steppe nomads. Okay, good for you. Any other special government form? I don't think so. No, that's basically it. Okay, moving on. We've got rebel types, state edicts, dynastic. This is really important. This is a really big deal. Check it out. We've got the Ismatid dynasty, which is ruling Antioch. This is the original dynasty that was ported over from CK2. They have ruled, and they started this game. Okay, let me slow down the hype. The Ismatid dynasty rules Antioch, and they have started this game with the province of Antakya and Urfa. These two provinces. This is what Antioch and the Ismatids started with. These two provinces. And they have expanded their own nation, which we played a part in, and now they also have their family on the throne of Egypt, obviously giving them a lot of control, and France. That is so freaking interesting. France, so the Ismatids, if we have a quick look again, or if we remind ourselves, France has the largest army, followed by Egypt, followed by Antioch, and I think Ethiopia maybe. Not Egypt necessarily, but still. So some of the largest armies controlled by the Ismatids. That's amazing. 3 great powers ruled by one family. That is really cool. Now the Habsburgs are doing well too. They for some time ruled France as well. Now they're only ruling Sicily and Cyrenaica. The Neuenburgs are no longer around. They at some point controlled Egypt, Azerbaijan, Sicily, Austria, Brandenburg. They're completely gone. Nothing they control. The Julish Gauls are doing really well because they're in revolutionary Galindia as well as Holy Roman Emperor, so they're of note too. And that's basically it's the Bamanids. They've ruled, well, Hindustan and Bamanas the entire time, so that's good for them. Hao dynasty, of course, in China, Hosokawa in Japan, and I guess the Bamans are important because they have also continued their rule. They're also a CK2 dynasty, so it's good for them. And I wonder if the Takrurs still rule Takrur, but no, I don't think so. No, Takrur has a new dynasty. Okay, yeah, but that's really cool. And of course, I should mention House Ventalen still ruling Normandy ever since drilling their horsemen. Very good. Very good for them. And who's ruling United States? Von Neunkirchen, a German dynasty. No surprise there. Okay, cool. So that is that. Let's see if there's any other map modes here. No. Let's check diplomatic stuff. I don't want to check diplomacy for every nation, so I'm just going to leave it. Do we have any federations? No. Trade leagues? Trade leagues could be interesting, but no, I don't seem to have that either. Players, great powers. Oh, I guess great powers could be interesting to see. Having a map mode for this. Oh, wow. This actually looks really cool. Yeah, so this shows the tributaries. Oh, that's actually really cool. We see the spheres of influence sort of thing. So yeah, China and their tributaries doing very well. Hindustan, Antioch here, Egypt with a few colonies. Yeah, look, there's very little. So it's basically the continent that has the least influence of great powers is probably South America. And then, of course, Europe. Because there's still a lot of independence going on. Very nice. Okay, and then victory cards we don't need. What have we got next? Trade. People wanted to see trade. Basically, notice already. English Channel obviously being really good. Venice being abysmal. Genoa always cool. And yeah, really, as I said, I mean, Champagne would be making so much more money if they would not be sending all of this away. But I guess they don't really have a choice. Okay. But yeah, I don't really care too much about the rest. We have gotten development, but that's kind of hard to see, actually, because the different shades don't really give you great indication. But generally, we see that, obviously, Europe has a higher density of highly developed provinces. Autonomy, colonial, trade goods, technology, I guess, we can maybe check out. See that Norway's doing so poorly, and Sicily as well. That's really upsetting, really upsetting. Institutions, I guess, we could check this out, where the institutions have spawned. So, obviously, 2 of them spawn. Enlightenment spawning in Paris, manufactories, or printing press over here, global trade in England. Where did we have colonialism? Oh, right, that was here in Alexandria. And then we had manufactories starting in Ethiopia as well. Oh, well, in Ethiopia, this was Egypt. Okay, and then we've got Renaissance in Africa. So we've got 3 institutions spawning in Africa, 3 in Western Europe. And then, wait, aren't there 2 more? Is it only 6? I actually don't know. But yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, by now, most everyone in the world has embraced all the institutions, so not really a huge surprise. Loot devastation doesn't really matter. Let's check out this stuff. Oh, I already did. Okay. And then geographical states, territories, overseas, colonial and trade regions. Well, those are just the regions. Yeah, okay, so the rest doesn't really matter all that much. So that's the map modes. And I kind of wanted to check out some of the nations that we've personally played. So I guess there's a few that are gone. The Iroquois are completely gone, as are the Russians, or Kiev, completely gone. But we still have Norway. I already mentioned them a little bit. Yeah, Norway obviously now has a new dynasty. They have, they're a vassal. They're Catholic, first of all. They're now a vassal to the revolutionary Galindia. And they're just overall doing very poorly. They've lost their colonies. It's really upsetting. They have still quite a lot of lands. They have more lands in certain areas than when we played, but they lost a little bit of other territories. Especially being betrayed by their friends in Obotrithia is saddening. Very saddening. Yeah, then of course, I mean, France, I guess I could check them out. The Carlings, obviously, they didn't really do too well. They didn't survive. But the nation of France, the nation the Carlings build, is doing incredibly well. Being obviously #1 great power, and still having the Ventalans as their vassal, which is just, I just love that. I just love seeing that. Antioch, doing really well. They have actually expanded a lot into the Balkans since we left them, and I think they have expanded a little bit into Persia as well. I think they've added a few, not too much, but a few provinces to themselves. But one thing of note is that Persia still holds Hormuz. They have not been able to take that away from them. But I just noticed this is not even a center of trade, so it's not all that important. So no problem there. Sicily also, as I said, very upsetting. They've been kicked out of the empire, kicked out of Europe as well. and they have their colonial nation has high liberty desires, so it's likely going to declare independence. And Sicily is very far behind in terms of technology as well. They've lost their dynasty, the von Neuenburgs. So yeah, that's also quite saddening. Actually, I'm not going to check out because we've just played as them. And as I said, Kiev and the Iroquois are gone. They have been destroyed, especially by the French. Very poor. Very poor. All right. Well, that was that. I think I've nothing else to add. I've been rambling for a long time anyways. This is a ridiculously long video, so I don't really want to drag it on too long. I really enjoyed this campaign. I loved that I converted it, and I loved that I switched nations, because you can see how overpowered France already is, and it really would not have been interesting. It really would not have been all that fun. So I'm glad that I switched. And what I've realized, though, is that switching the nation after, like, one ruler would definitely not have been enough. And even 2 rulers really wasn't enough. For some nations, as you know, the Iroquois and Russia, well, Iroquois, they were kind of messed up. But Russia, if I had continued playing as Russia, I would have really been able to pull something off. With just rulers, 2 rulers, I was able to do something. But eventually the nation collapsed, as you could see. I needed more time for Russia to stabilize the realm. 2 rulers was enough. Well, actually, in fact, 2 rulers wasn't really enough for Xi either. It was just, we actually played as 4 rulers. And I needed all of that time to really make them strong. So 2 rulers really isn't enough. So what I'm thinking for the next time, I want to do this again. I want to do this format as well. But I'm thinking that I'm only going to be playing as 4 different nations, not 6 or how many we had. And basically, I'm going to switch whenever the ages switch, right? Because this is cool for several reasons. First of all, we're not going to be surprised when a ruler dies and we're like in the middle of something, because when the ages change, it shows you. It actively shows you that you have like 120 months left, right? And you know, okay, so it's coming to an end, and I can kind of prepare for that. So that's something really cool. And it's a lot more time for each nation, because the ages are usually longer than the lifetime of 2 rulers. And we can check out how well we've done, at least in terms of the game, because we can see how much score we've acquired through the ages, and then we can easily see how well the AI continued. So that's my plan for the next series, and I'll go a little bit more into detail how I want to do this exactly, but I'm not going to be starting another EU4 series until October 1st, because then we'll have a new patch for EU4, and that will, I think, introduce new provinces, and that would break the save game, so I'm not going to bother starting before that. In fact, I'm actually going to be away on October 1st, so I can actually only start after this. So I think October 10th or something is when I'm back, and that's when I will start the new EU4 series. As for this one, I know people have been asking to convert this to Victoria 2, and I haven't fully decided if I will do this, but one thing I can say for sure is there will be no Victoria 2 playthrough, because Victoria 2 was my first game, my first Paradox game that I really loved playing. But I know that I mean, there was a reason why I switched from Victoria 2 to playing EU4 and other games, because the rebels are just really annoying. That one time I went back and played Victoria 2, I mean, it was fun, nostalgia, but really the game isn't all that great. It's really not all that fun with the rebels. And so I'm not going to be playing Victoria 2. The only thing I could imagine is me converting this over, if it's not too much of a hassle, and then doing a time-lapse video. I could see that happening just to see how like the world develops, but I don't want to play it. So if you guys are interested in such a time-lapse video, then I really would actually like doing it. But if not, if there's no interest, then I'm likely not going to do it. But yeah, that was it. That was all I wanted to tell you. And now what I will do is I'm actually going to go back to spectator mode. I'm going to be showing you the timeline, letting that run down. I'm not going to be showing Australia, I'm sorry, but that really isn't too relevant. And I'm gonna go on, I guess, fast, and that will be the end of this. I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I will see you next time.